We break stories from more places than any other international news broadcaster. We are the leaders in global breaking news.
What do you, there in Volvo India, see as the key challenges for the Indian economy?
Yeah, I think first of all, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I think it's a great opportunity to sit along with Matthew and discuss some very fundamental issues with regards to brands, as to what Volvo is doing. But I think before that, Matthew's raised another very important issue, which is how India is going to pan out over the next few years. And I think that's very important for all of us to really focus on for a few minutes, and probably we can take some questions as well on that going forward later. I think we've had, over the last 3 to 4 years, a period of very low growth. In fact, many times we felt that there was policy paralysis in the government. Things didn't move. The country almost came to a standstill. Nothing happened over the last 3 to 4 years. So that was pretty sad. It seems the change of government has at least changed the sentiments with regards to economy. And we can look at about 7 to 9 percentage points of GDP growth going forward for the next few years. But that's not important. The real thing is how sustainable this growth is going to be. And it's very important that India grows at least 8 to 9 percentage points over the next 10 to 15 years, because otherwise we have some very, very serious issues. And very, very serious issues staring us in the face. Let me share with you some of the challenges what Matthew wanted me to share with you. There are, I think, 8 challenges which India really faces. And I think we need to focus on all of them. Probably we don't have enough time today, but at a later point in time, I'll share some of them with you. The first one is financial inclusion. I think this is a very, very important thing. We have a very, very poor GDP per capita number. Probably we are one of the worst in the emerging world in terms of GDP per capita. Imagine almost 60% of our population contributes to only 15% of GDP. And the balance, roughly about 40% population contributes to 85% of GDP. Look at this. How skewed is this? So there's a huge issue of the haves and the have-nots, and this is going to become a huge social problem if we don't tackle it. So financial inclusion is going to be one of the core things, and I'm happy that this government has started some Jan Dhan Yojana, getting a lot of these people into the banking system. I think that's a good sign.
At different levels, bureaucracy, how do you go about, when you say we need to cut bureaucracy, and Narendra Modi says exactly the same, how do you actually do it?
I think mindset change. I think, you have some very good bureaucrats working in tandem with the government, but at the junior levels, at the middle levels, we got to change the mindset that delivery is the real thing to do. Execution is what will take India. Otherwise, we'll keep talking, we will make policy pronouncements, nothing will happen on ground, and that leads to frustration. And that's the key to my mind.
The key, when you have a global brand, and it's not dissimilar to the BBC, is that there are those key messages that you've just taken us through. Absolute, the pillar, as you described it just now, of the brand. But actually, to make it work in the different places you operate, you have to localize it. Just tell me more about that, because that is very, very important to actually making the brand a success where you are operating.
I think that's a very good question, and there are no final answers to it. But yes, there's always a challenge when a global brand, when you become an international brand, when you go into 190 markets where we operate, there are huge cultural differences. How these brands are going to be managed in a local country depends on the local people. In spite of the various training you do, various orientation which you provide to people in various countries, there are some huge challenges in terms of how they look at brand, how they look at the local issues, how they want to dovetail those local issues with the brand. So I think So so we call it glocal. I mean, I think it's very important. So what we do is today, we keep the umbrella brand and the essence of the brand the same, but we localize few of our initiatives at India level. For instance, in terms of cultural difference, we deal with our customers. And how do people deal with the customers in Europe? I think there's a huge difference. Those are the things which we have to bring in, and we have to encourage our employees to do that. And Volvo
does it even extend to consumers what they might want in a car, in a basic Volvo car in Sweden, or a vehicle in India?
Yes, that's always a demand from the customers. But Volvo, two things Volvo never compromises on are the safety and sustainability of the machine. So we never cut out the safety aspects, even though we may be on a price point may have a disadvantage because it may not be a like-to-like comparison with another brand in the same category, but we do not cut on those. So that's something which Volvo does not compromise on. When it comes to the basic brand value, we never compromise.
Tell me more about the shifts that we're seeing. Have you seen a shift in global marketing trends when it comes to a push to be more, in a sense, consumer-friendly compared to being media-friendly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let me recall my career 30 years ago when I started how brands, how marketeers engaged with the customers is a lot different from how marketeers and brands are engaging with the customers. There's a huge difference. There was so much only the customer could choose from. Owning a foreign brand was a luxury. If you had a problem with the brand, you had a protocol, you wrote to the company, you waited for a decision, and if the decision was not favorable, you went to a consumer court and you fought out with the company, and companies said, this is all we can give, nothing beyond that. So the refrain was, you can choose any color as long as it's black. I mean, that was typically during the times in 80s when this came from the Ford company. And this was something very, very interesting. This basically captures the mood and the refrain generally happening at that point in time. Today, things have turned on the head. There are many more options available to the customer. The customer can choose. And if you are not relevant to the customer, the brand will die. And now, on top of that, with the advent of new media, including the social media, things are on real time. You cannot wait for a customer complaint to go through that protocol process. Customer is wanting to engage with you. He wants answers. He wants inputs from you. And he also wants to cooperate and collaborate with you in working on the brand, which we call co-creation. So I think there's a lot, humongous change which has happened in the last 30 years when it comes to.
And more recently, as you look to shift to put the consumer right at the heart of all of this, how fast has that happened with digital media just in the last, what are you talking about? 2 years, 5 years, where suddenly you're having to completely change the model?
Yes. It has happened over the last 2 to 3 years. But in India, still the penetration of internet and social media is not reached that level. So we are not, all of us cannot reach our target audience fully. I think the social media penetration in India is close to about 10 to 15%. I think gentlemen and ladies sitting here may know better on the numbers. It's still 10 to 15%. There is the balance 80 to 90% of audience, target audience, which still has to be dealt with traditional media, so to say.